I've been in this role now for 4 years, and, my whole thing is like, I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum. My job is to sort of help people have the best experiences they can. But while I'm at it, why don't I help you understand what things you might be missing and what really makes this place so incredible, which is the community.
Can you share a little more around the background of the Leadville race series, and maybe with your economic development hat on, which I think is the hat you're wearing today?
That's right, 100%.
Add in some color commentary on the historical background of the Leadville race series.
Yeah, totally. Yes. So Leadville, Colorado, 1860s, we were very much not a planned community, right? Like, I think that from an economic development standpoint, what makes this community so interesting is like a few people came here and they found a big chunk of gold and they were like, this is it. This is the spot. This chunk of gold is huge in comparison to anything I found in California. So we're going to set up shop. And pretty quickly, this place grew from a few little mining camps to, pretty soon they figured out gold wasn't really as available as they thought here, but silver. This community at one point had 40,000 people living in Leadville, and we have 2,700 people now. So for imagining this 1 square mile community having 40,000 people living here is just, it constantly blows me away to think about how that was even possible. But everyone was here for the same reason, which was to find a way to try and get rich off of silver mining. And, at the end of the day, pretty common story. It's like there were a few folks, mostly people who figured out how to like sell supplies to the miners or sort of like, be the mining company rather than the person sort of doing the physical mining.
Is this why there's such a large Jewish population? We needed bankers out there.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. Same thing with the Irish. There is at one point, one of the largest concentrations of Irish folks in the entire United States was Leadville, Colorado, and Boston, Massachusetts. Those were and I'm from Boston. So obviously my Irish Catholic heritage runs pretty deep and pretty strong. So just naturally, I'm just drawn to these places where there was just a lot of, there were definitely a lot of sort of like very specific groups of people who, you hear of, hey, this is where 18 million cousins are going and getting work and working on something in the West. So, in many ways we talk about, this area as sort of the gateway to the Western expansion. This Leadville was 1,000% the quintessential Western Wild West town with all the shortcomings and trappings and failings of, what that brings. So, but yeah, we basically, from, let's just call it like 1900 up until the 1980s, there were just these cycles of boom and bust. And then in 1983, basically overnight, the company, they were mining at that point molybdenum underground. And the company just decided this isn't viable anymore. And they closed up shop. And from 1983 to 2011, that major mining operation remained pretty much stagnant, and so there was literally an entire community that was located right up on Fremont Pass, which anyone that's been to this area, you'll know that's kind of one of the gateways to come into Leadville. And there was an entire community that lived up there at the mine. And when the mine closed, the community brought a lot of those houses. They literally loaded them onto trucks and trailers and brought the houses down to Leadville. And so quite a few of the homes that are in an area called West Park are homes that were literally relocated from the top of the mountain where the mining was down into the town. But yeah, so, it decimated the economy. It decimated sort of the population. A lot of people moved away. But there were some folks like Ken Clover who moved on to become a senator in the state of Colorado. But, he and others kind of just coalesced around this idea of like, we need to do something that's not just mining here. And so, it is pretty beautiful. We have a lot of mountains. So they sort of came to this idea of creating a running race. And the standard joke, whether it's lore or not, I love it, is basically like the only way that we can get people to stay here overnight is if we make them do something really hard, like run 100 miles, then they'll have to stay overnight. And Ken loves telling that story that, he got that advice from a state senator or something of like, you got to get people to stay here overnight because then they'll spend money. So that was sort of the birth of our tourism economy. And, for all intents and purposes, for anyone that doesn't know where Leadville is located, we're located right sort of in the center of a lot of affluent resort communities. So we're right in between Vail, Aspen, Breckenridge, Summit County, and then we're right at the headwaters of the Arkansas River. So we head down towards like Buena Vista and Salida. And so for a very long time, we had our own tiny little tourism economy that existed on things like events. So like the Leadville 100 was sort of the beginning of that. And then other than that, we were considered kind of a bedroom community. So you either worked in the mines or you worked in the tourism industry in one of the resort communities. And then, basically we kind of were on this slow trajectory of like, tourism is growing to 1 to 3% per year since about the 80s. And then COVID happened. And COVID, I don't know if you're aware, it was kind of a big deal, and it had a lot of monumental shifts on economies and communities. And so in 2021, we saw a 46% increase in tourism and direct spend in our community. Basically, since COVID, this community has been having to really adjust to a lot of things that have been changing around us. I think the sort of Leadville having its sort of moment in the sun in terms of so many more people were starting to recognize how incredible and unique and authentic Leadville is. That's a blessing and a curse, right? I mean, the explosion of Melanzana as sort of this cultural phenomenon that only happened in 2022.
Oh, wow.
Like the reservation system and the concept of sort of supply and demand, and that pulling on the heartstrings of people that want something that they can't exactly have that same day. That has all kind of been kind of a response to COVID. And so then my job was created in 2020, the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, as a way to sort of help our community sort of reckon with and play with and understand what this new existence was and what this new paradigm was. And the 10-cent version of my background is I was born in a hotel, like I was actually born in the Silver Lake Motel, and I was, turning over beds and checking in guests at 2 and 3 years old at my family's motel in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. So I come by it honestly in terms of my understanding of the hospitality industry. But of course, when I went to college, I was going to do anything but what my family did. So I went out and I became a filmmaker and traveled the world. And the thing that I never really admitted to myself until later on was I worked mostly in food, travel, and action sports. So basically my job was to tell the story of why places were so amazing and why experiences were so worth it. And I did that as a filmmaker for 16 years. And then when I finally landed in Leadville and had a family of my own, I basically was like, okay, I want to have an impact more locally. And it just happened to work out that, this community was kind of at this place where they wanted sort of help in understanding, like, what do we do with this newfound attention? And so, I've been in this role now for 4 years, and my whole thing is like, I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum. My job is to sort of help people have the best experiences they can. But while I'm at it, why don't I help you understand what things you might be missing and what really makes this place so incredible, which is the community. I mean, yes, the old barns and the old sheds and the 14ers, Mount Massive, Mount Elbert, those things are inherently, objectively cool. But ultimately, it's like the small business owners that we have on Harrison Avenue, because no business on Harrison Avenue, which again was literally like a place for shootouts, et cetera, 100 years ago, all of those businesses are owned by entrepreneurs. There's no formula businesses on Harrison Avenue. So that means there's no Starbucks, there's no business that has multiple locations, no franchise locations. So every business owner on Harrison Avenue is just a human who said, I have an idea and I want to try and make a small business out of it. And so stuff like that is just endlessly inspiring for me in terms of trying to help people learn about it and, tap into it and get excited about it. And then, also those people are the same people who can tell you exactly the best data on when to go, where to go, what, whether we live at 10,000 feet. So weather in our community is not something where you can just go on the weather app on your phone and see tomorrow's forecast and feel okay about it. Like there's a lot of variables and a lot of things to consider. And, I think that I personally love and value the fact that Leadville Twin Lakes is the kind of place where metaphorically, if you understand how to read a map and compass, you're going to have a much better time here, because we are not necessarily like a Disneyland, Disney World location or Disneyland, Disney World destination. We are the kind of place where following your gut and intuition and, knowing what the 10 essentials are, at least, right? The 10 essentials for getting outdoors, at least knowing what they are, that type of thing is going to help you have a much better time here. And again, being resourceful, I think, is like super critical for all human beings. So I think it's a really awesome, incredible space to come and learn and explore, because you will definitely sort of get more out of it, especially the more you put into it.